I never thought a couple of rusted survey markers buried deep in the woods could bring down an entire corporate empire. But that's exactly what happened, right there, in front of hundreds of neighbors watching live, while the HOA president screamed, ripped papers in half, and begged anyone who'd listen that I didn't own a damn thing. In that moment, the whole valley saw the truth. Their fancy glass headquarters wasn't even theirs. It was sitting on my land, my ground lease, the very valley they'd tried to steal out from under me. When I came back to my cabin after 3 brutal months of divorce fallout in Denver, I was just hoping for quiet, maybe time to breathe without lawyers clawing at me. Instead, I found a black sedan parked across my driveway and a woman in a pressed suit waiting like a vulture circling roadkill. She didn't bother with small talk. She introduced herself as Karen Hall, Valley Ridge Property Management, the so-called HOA for Pine Hollow. She handed me a thick folder like she was serving an eviction notice, her voice clipped, rehearsed, and colder than the mountain wind. "We've documented multiple violations during your absence. Mr. Walker, your account is in jeopardy. Immediate payment of $2,400 is required." At first I laughed, thinking it had to be a mistake. $2,400? For what? My porch light being too dim? Grass growing an inch too tall? But then she leaned in and dropped the hammer. She knew everything. My divorce filings, my job change, even my credit score. She actually said out loud, "You fit the profile of a high-risk homeowner." Like I was some criminal target instead of a guy trying to rebuild his life. My skin crawled. What kind of neighborhood HOA had access to that kind of personal info? I told her I was strapped for cash. Maybe we could work something out. She didn't blink. Company policy does not accommodate personal hardship. Non-payment triggers escalation. And then she strutted back to her sedan like she'd just signed my death certificate. The next morning, my old friend Lena dropped by. She'd retired from the sheriff's office after 25 years of chasing crooks and corporate scammers. She didn't mince words. After looking at the documents Karen shoved at me, she said flat out, "Jake, this isn't a neighborhood dispute. These people are pros. They target folks in debt, push them into foreclosure, then flip the property for their own development deals." My stomach dropped. It didn't take long for the full weight of that machine to come down on me. Health inspectors, code officers, zoning agents, they all started knocking on my door with citations and fees, each one backed up by paperwork bearing Valley Ridge's logo. They'd coordinated it, like a military operation, one agency after another. My water, my chimney, my zoning permit, all suddenly non-compliant. Every knock on the door was another nail in my coffin. I'm not ashamed to admit there was a night I nearly broke. I sat at my kitchen table, staring at a pile of violation notices, my hands shaking. I thought, maybe I should just give up, sell the cabin, walk away, start over somewhere else. I felt like I was drowning, and every fight I'd tried, my marriage, my finances, had ended with me gasping for air. Why would this be any different? Maybe I really was the problem. Maybe Karen was right. Maybe I didn't belong here. But then something inside me snapped back. No, this wasn't about me being irresponsible. This was about them scheming, stacking the deck, exploiting my weakest moment. I wasn't crazy. They were. And if I didn't stand up now, not only would I lose the last thing I had, but they'd roll over the next guy, and the next, until nobody had a home left in this valley. So I started digging, literally and figuratively. I traced property deeds, pored over county archives, and eventually stumbled onto something Valley Ridge hadn't bothered to check. The original homestead survey markers from the 1800s. Those markers didn't just outline my cabin lot. They stretched across the creek, up the ridge, and right into the commercial strip where Valley Ridge had built their shiny regional headquarters. I remember standing there in the woods with a metal detector buzzing in my hand, staring at a weathered iron stake in the ground and laughing so hard I scared the birds. Still, I knew evidence wasn't enough. I needed to expose them publicly, in a way they couldn't bury under legal jargon. That chance came when Karen herself scheduled a transparency live stream to showcase their so-called financial integrity. She wanted to paint me as the deadbeat neighbor resisting community standards. What she didn't know was that I'd show up on camera with history and law on my side. The stream started like a corporate pep rally. Karen stood in front of a banner, spouting off about protecting property values. Her smile tight, her eyes darting. Comments in the chat were polite at first, neighbors nodding along. But when I stepped into the frame and laid out those survey maps, everything flipped. "Before we discuss compliance fees," I said, holding up the papers, "let's talk about who actually owns this land." The room went dead quiet. Then questions started flying in the chat. Wait, does Valley Ridge even have authority here? Did anyone vote for this HOA? Karen's face drained of color. She grabbed at my documents, shouting, "Lies! Fabrications! Our office sits on commercial land!" Her voice cracked, her hands trembled, and the camera caught every second of it. When a county surveyor joined the live stream to confirm my markers looked authentic, it was over. Neighbors flooded the chat with outrage, demanding answers. Karen completely lost it, hyperventilating, shrieking about her daughter's medical bills, clawing at papers like a wild animal. Clips went viral within hours. The mighty HOA queen exposed as a fraud in front of the entire valley. But the real nail in the coffin came a week later, at the official fire safety hearing. The county fire marshal, the surveyor. Even zoning officials were present. I laid out my evidence, and the surveyor testified, "Mr. Walker's boundaries include the parcel where Valley Ridge headquarters currently sits." You could hear a pin drop. Then the fire marshal, stone-faced, said, "Building occupancy is unauthorized. Valley Ridge must vacate immediately." Karen erupted again, screaming at her own boss, Linda Miller, who had swooped in to do damage control. "You promised me everything was legal. You promised we were protected," she shrieked, while security guards held her back from lunging at my papers. Linda's mask of calm cracked, sweat dripping down her temple as county officials ordered her entire operation shut down. The employees scattered, terrified of losing their jobs, some even shouting at Linda for dragging them into criminal liability. And there I was, standing in the same room where weeks earlier I'd been called a high-risk homeowner, now watching the entire empire crumble because I'd refused to back down. The end wasn't some grand celebration. It was quieter, heavier. Linda staring at the floor, realizing her influence meant nothing now. Karen sobbing, calling out for help that wasn't coming. Officials walking them out like school kids caught cheating. And me, just breathing, finally breathing, in a valley that was mine all along. And if there's one lesson burned into me through this hell, it's this: bullies only win until someone shows them the truth they can't bury.